House members flee the U.S. Capitol. An unprecedented shutdown of the House after dozens of Senate workers test positive for anthrax exposure. Investigators find a possible link between the New York and Florida anthrax cases. They don't have the disease, but thousands are demanding the cure. The danger of Cipro mania. And U.S. forces step up their aid to Afghan rebels trying to take a key Taliban airport.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. Anthrax anxiety took a new and possibly more ominous turn today after 31 people on the Senate side of the U.S. Capitol tested positive for exposure to anthrax bacteria. Doesn't mean they have anthrax, does mean they've been exposed to the disease. But the side effects are showing up on Capitol Hill. For the first time ever, the House closed for business over health concern. Most House members left for a week. The Senate will conduct some business in other Washington locations. CBS's Bob Schieffer begins our coverage.
Lines of congressional staffers being tested for anthrax got longer, and work at the Capitol virtually stopped with the disclosure that dozens of Senate aides and Capitol Police had tested positive to anthrax exposure. Most of the exposed staffers work for Majority Leader Daschle, but he said the early diagnosis is they'll be all right.
There is a huge difference between a positive nasal swab, which only indicates exposure, of course, and infection. There is no evidence, and I want to emphasize this, absolutely no evidence of infection at this point. All of those who have had this positive nasal swab have been on antibiotics now for some time, and the good news is that everyone will be okay.
Even so, extraordinary precautions have been ordered, and staffers are being sent home until Tuesday.
We've held the mail in the members' offices, but we think it's prudent also to take some time and go through and make sure that this building and our office buildings are environmentally safe.
Anthrax was discovered not only in Daschle's office in the Hart Senate office building, but also in the mail room of the Dirksen building next door.
With regard to the mail room, among the various tests that were done, there was a single test which appeared to be positive, and because of that, the mail room also has been placed off limits.
All 6 Senate and House office buildings will be closed for 5 days and will undergo thorough testing for anthrax. Adding to the anxiety, when a staffer in House Speaker Dennis Hastert's office saw photos of the letters that had been mailed to Daschle and to Tom Brokaw, she remembered seeing a letter addressed to the Speaker in the same handwriting several weeks ago. That letter was not opened, but disposed of in a burn bag.
It made for a nerve-wracking day, but this afternoon, Senate leaders said they believe everything is under control, and they urged calm. Dan.
Bob Schieffer at a location near Capitol Hill. Here in New York City, a test today reportedly indicated the presence of anthrax spores at a city office of Governor George Pataki. Source of this possible contamination unknown. The governor speculates some spores may have been tracked into his office by state troopers who accompanied him to the 2 known anthrax infection sites in New York City. U.S. health officials have discovered new evidence tonight in the anthrax investigation. They say now the anthrax strain in New York appears to match the strain in Florida. It is not yet clear whether the anthrax sent to Capitol Hill came from the same strain. CBS's Jim Stewart has other late developments in the anthrax investigation.
The anthrax spores sent by letter to Senator Daschle's office in Washington may not be quite as potent as first thought. Senior law enforcement officials confirm the sample of bacteria is responding to antibiotics, a sign that the spores may not have been designed for use in military weapons, since most military-grade anthrax is treated to resist antibiotics like penicillin and Cipro. Government scientists caution, however, that not all of their tests are complete. Meanwhile, the search for who mailed the 2 letters goes on. Behavioral scientists are studying the wording of the letters for clues about the author, while the Army continues to study the powdery-like anthrax itself. Officials have still not ruled out the possibility that the spores were cultivated by an individual with great skill. And officials confirm they can find no evidence thus far that the mailed anthrax was produced by a foreign power like Iraq, which is thought to have once stockpiled 22,000 gallons of anthrax at a production site south of Baghdad. There is also no evidence it comes from Russia, which, like the United States, developed great quantities of the bacteria during the Cold War.
Officials admit they're puzzled, but not without clues. They have the letters, they have the anthrax itself, and what one law enforcement official calls substantial leads. This comes after questioning pharmacies, hospitals, and research facilities about their anthrax inventories. And so far, at least, there's still no sign that those leads point them toward any organized terrorist group. Dan?
Jim Stewart in Washington. An editor's note: if you're left confused and wondering about the amount of contradictory information coming from the government about the exact nature of the anthrax danger, it is because so many people in government are confused and wondering about it. As journalists, we're doing our best to report reliable information. Right now, consistently reliable information and hard facts from the government are hard to come by. Federal health officials today tried to address the public clamor for Cipro, the prescription drug treatment for anthrax. As CBS News medical correspondent Elizabeth Caledon reports, the officials want you to know Cipro has risks as well as benefits, and Cipro is not the only antibiotic that works.
It's one of the most potent antibiotics on the market and the only drug approved specifically to treat inhalational anthrax. That has put Cipro in the unusual position of being on the list of America's most wanted. People are coveting prescriptions. Politicians exposed in the latest attack are exalting it by name.
I've already taken one Cipro pill.
And doctors like LA internist Samuel Fink report being harassed by patients for refusing to dole it out like candy.
I've been met with hostility. They want to protect themselves, their family, their dog, their other pets.
The demand for Cipro has created a crisis within a crisis for health officials. And today, the FDA made a point of announcing that other antibiotics, penicillin and doxycycline, also fight anthrax. The agency plans to establish doses and new labels for the other drugs in the event of a biological attack. The concern with Cipro is that a nation of people clamoring for one powerful drug they don't know how or when to use is a medical minefield.
In the absence of an infection, the drugs absolutely could do more harm than good.
Like any drug, taking Cipro involves risks. Side effects include nausea, abdominal pain, and mental confusion. Studies in animals show it can cause abnormal cartilage development. It is not recommended for use in children or pregnant women. But a bigger worry is resistance. Overuse of Cipro will eventually render it powerless.
If there is an intense use of Cipro in one community, in a household, then you see that whole area will be rid of the susceptible strains and the resistant ones will come to replace them.
If side effects and resistance don't stop the Cipro stampede, perhaps price will. About $300 for a 1-month supply. A cheaper way to protect yourself is to remain calm and take your doctor's advice. Elizabeth Caledon, CBS News, New York.